influencer is not something that you just add on as a bit of extra budget. It's the main budget for a marketing campaign. We utilize technology that no one else in MENA has access to, which enables us to be able to have a look specifically at creators' audiences more so than other people. It's dependent on how niche the creator is, and they're doing a collaborator post with a really big beauty brand. I feel that other really big beauty brands won't then work with them for a period of time because they're automatically affiliated even more so with that specific brand. ROI globally drives decisions, but ROX in the UAE drives more desire to purchase.
Tatum Greig.
Yes.
Welcome to Below the Fold.
Thank you for having me.
I'm excited that you're here on the show. It was a short notice, yet I am thrilled that you accepted the invitation to come on and tell us about your experience in marketing.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about yourself before we get into the technical details about your experience in marketing.
Sure, I'd love to. So as you said, I'm Tatum Greig. I'm an influencer specialist with over 8 years experience in influencer marketing. Recently moved over to Dubai just over 6 months ago. It was 6 months yesterday and absolutely love it.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Couldn't be anywhere else now. And have worked on a number of high profile campaigns, some really, really big conglomerates from the UK, but on a global scale, predominantly B2C, but with some B2B work. And have also led some really cool initiatives in the UK as well. But yes, decided that it was time to have a look at other areas and territories, and the UAE was one of the main ones where I saw an opportunity, and that's why I ended up moving over here.
Fantastic. Before we get into what you're doing here in the UAE, when you were in the UK, you said that you worked with some of the big conglomerates on influencer marketing. Right? Were you working brand side, or you were working with an agency, or you were working freelance with these influencers?
I've always been agency side, never experienced brand side, although I've heard that it's amazing as well.
Yeah.
I've been really lucky to work in some of the biggest and most incredible agencies in London, and also some boutique agency experience too. Initially started, like I said, about 8-9 years ago in PR after having a host of experience working across different sales roles before that as well, which is really funny. I didn't actually go to university. I went straight to work after college and did like 7 years experience in sales. But yeah, started in PR.
Beats a university degree, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I hear
now. Yeah.
But yeah, started in PR and then ended up moving over very quickly and understanding that influencer was a really interesting niche that I wanted to find out more about. Moved from one large agency to another and sort of built myself up within the industry as someone who really understood the market, became very well connected with talent and agents. And then, just moved across the industry, built my profile, and most recently was working in an agency for 4.5 years in London called $1 Billion Boy. I wouldn't be here without them because I learned a lot, and we also scaled the agency sort of together. They were very small when I started, and I was part of their expansion as well, which gave me the guts, I guess, to be able to come out here and do something of my own.
Yeah, I've had the chance to work with influencers, agency side, back when I was working with the agency. And I remember it wasn't an easy task. It's not an easy job with a schedule of a busy influencer and also meet the requirements of a brand. Did you experience the same challenge or?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, you know, you do get used to working with creators. And I think one of the most important parts of working with creators is understanding that they themselves are their own brand as well. So you're not only working on behalf of a brand, trying to come up with a creative and a strategy for a campaign to be able to advertise like a product or a service, but you're also taking into consideration how you're going to work with a creator, make that work with their own personal brand, and also speak to their community that they've built as well. And I think that that's almost one of the more difficult parts of it is, you know, trying to explain that to a brand that, you know, they want to work in a certain way with a creator, but they can't always achieve the exact vision every single time, because it ends up making the content less successful from a creator side, because their audience knows exactly what they want to see and what they're used to seeing.
Right. And I really love that you're using the term creator, not influencer. And we'll get to that in a few minutes.
Sure.
Last question on the agency in the UK. What's that one thing that you've learned from the agency that you feel you wouldn't have learned if you worked with a brand side or managing an influencer directly?
What would I say that I've learned? That's a really, really good question. I think that...
Would it be the versatility to work on multiple projects, for example? It could be a project management skill or experience.
I think it's people. I think it's the people that you work with.
Yeah.
You know, working on an influencer campaign or a creator campaign is so multifaceted. There is so much to think about. Then multiply that where you're working on 8 or 9 different campaigns simultaneously. You have to have an amazing team of people surrounding you in order to be able to execute work well. And, you know, I've definitely been in this situation where you've been around people who are still learning, and that can be a little bit more tricky, but it's part of your job to be able to make sure that they understand why we're doing something. But yeah, I definitely think that when your agency side is so fast paced, you have to be working with people who have an equal to or higher drive in order to be able to seek the vision that the brand is looking for, but also as an agency providing creative is looking for as well.
Right. And from everything you've said so far, it also feels like working agency side means that you also have wider knowledge or more knowledge about the influencer landscape and how to work with influencers. So you've mentioned influencers are also a walking brand, right? They also have their own brand that they need to follow, right? And you just have to develop this expertise in marrying both the influencer brand or the creator brand and the brand, I suppose. This is what any agency actually faces, is they're always trying to be at the cutting edge of whatever service they're trying to deliver. And so if we move now to your Dubai chapter.
Yes.
Can we call it that?
I love that.
Yeah,
it's definitely my Dubai chapter.
So you've gained a really good experience in the UK, and now you moved here. Did you move here with the agency, or what are you up to in Dubai?
No, so I actually founded an agency called Bees and Honey in Dubai. And what's really funny is if a year ago you'd asked me whether I would be living here doing this, I would have never been able to say yes, just because I couldn't see it in my future. And I loved being in London and loved the work that I was doing there. But I came here last September. So my dad and my stepmom actually have lived here for 8+ years themselves. So I came to visit them, couldn't turn off from work, and was just thinking about the fact that I hadn't really seen anything outstanding influencer-wise coming from Dubai. And I knew it was a really socially connected territory. And I knew that there were brands who wanted to spend money here and do influencer marketing. So I just looked into it a bit more. And I ended up doing some posts on LinkedIn when I was on my flight over, asking to speak to anyone who was working in digital marketing, or who managed talent, or who was talent, to just find out what the landscape looked like, again, with no view to moving here. Met with lots of people who were amazing and gave me lots of their time, and just ended up seeing that there was a huge opportunity here in... there were so many creators who wanted to work with brands, but it seemed like there weren't any agencies who were offering influencer as their predominant service. There were a lot of agencies, like digital marketing agencies or PR agencies, who offered influencer as a drop down on their website, but there were no agencies that I really knew about who offered influencer marketing first and then could offer other services second. And from my point of view, influencer is not something that you just add on as a bit of extra budget. It's the main budget for a marketing campaign. And then there are other ways to be able to amplify it. In a territory like Dubai, social media is so prevalent. Dubai is the most digitally connected territory.
You also said that there are plenty of creators or influencers in Dubai.
Yeah.
Is this like a fact? Are there more? I feel like there are more influencers per capita in Dubai versus other cities?
There are a lot, and there's a lot of work that's been done by the government entities like Creators HQ, for instance, to be
Yeah.
able to bring creators who are amazing from all over the world to be able to start their lives and continue their businesses in Dubai.
But there aren't enough agencies.
No, but there just weren't enough agencies who really
Yeah.
understood exactly how to be able to do that work. And I know that I did kind of predict it. I'm not gonna lie. When I saw that there was an opportunity, I predicted that Dubai was going to be this next big creator boom, that lots of people were going to start moving here, that brands were going to start pivoting and spending a lot more budget on influencer marketing here versus other forms of marketing. That was sort of November last year. That was when I started having conversations with a friend of mine who is connected to the wider group, which Bees and Honey sits underneath, who's also the MD of Bees and Honey as well.
Okay.
He is part of the creative agency called Them Again under Gem Plus Group. We also have other agencies that offer PR, full service production, social media as well, and talent management from like a photographer, director point of view. But it seemed like there was an opportunity from their side as well to be able to activate something. So I put together a business proposal, did my research, knew that it would work, knew that as well, it didn't seem that a lot of people who were actually activating influencer campaigns here were doing it with creative in mind, and were also really doing it with any data in mind, which was strange because 50% of influencer marketing is data led. You're not just creating content with a creator, very important because that's what people see, but also you're speaking to an audience that is equally as important in order to be able to drive your sales as a result. So it's twofold, and it felt like a lot of different agencies were just looking at influencers as, oh, this is a person I follow and I really like the content they create. Let's work with them. Let's produce some content. There's no storyline. There's no red thread between anything, and the content wouldn't perform necessarily very well. And that ended up, I feel, sort of making creator marketing not be deemed as not so successful in the UAE because there was no way of tracking return.
Yeah. There's no proper guidance.
Yeah.
Also on like what's the best approach to work with creators. I feel like brands tend to be very conservative when it comes to respecting their brand guidelines and their usual I guess marketing material that they try to push out there. So i.e. TVCs, KVs that they produce for their campaigns.
Yeah.
And I think there's a need for a shift in mindset when you work with creators to sort of let go of this classic approach and really give the creator more freedom, right, to produce content.
Yeah, 100%.
What do you think is the right approach?
Definitely allowing creators to have creative freedom to a certain extent is super, super important because, like I said previously, it's one of the ways that their audience is most receptive to, in essence, being sold something through the content that they're used to seeing. But it's also incredibly important to have a very good creative team working behind a campaign, because when you have other elements of a digital marketing campaign, like you said, TVCs or out of home advertising, or even just a PR campaign that we wouldn't be running, we need to make sure that messaging is completely aligned. And having a good creative team allows us to be able to look at that messaging, look at what the brand's objectives are, and then being able to pull together a campaign that looks into all of the different areas, whether it's the influencers brand or the type of niche of influencers that we want to target, the wider marketing activity that's happening, and then also the creative that we're able to pull together that is interesting for the audience that we want to target, but also is aligned with what the brand is doing.
So I guess marketeers can still follow the brand guidelines while working with creators.
Of course.
There may be a bit of a challenge when a brand is aiming for a certain positioning and they're after a specific association, whereby the content that they push needs to be highly edited, it needs to have special effects, well produced. And so iPhone footage just doesn't cut it for the positioning that they're after, right? And I think this is where there could be a challenge with working with creators who use, very light equipment.
Yeah.
Sometimes their phones to like film skits or maybe certain situations. But this is what's working on the platforms, right? On social media.
It is. And there are other ways, you can always tie in wider production into an influencer marketing campaign to be able to capture, the other elements, or utilize the creators as actors within content, or be able to capture additional B-roll, etc. But yes, creators do tend to side more with utilizing iPhones and things like that, which works very, very well in terms of them being able to edit their content, be able to repurpose their content onto lots of different channels. I mean, I've seen so many creators, and I think lots of people don't realize this either if they haven't creators shooting content, that they'll shoot content for multiple different channels at the same time, but using different equipment. So you might have a really good camera to be able to shoot your long form content, for instance. Then you could be using an iPhone to be able to shoot so when I say long form, I mean like more for YouTube.
Yeah.
And then you could be using an iPhone to be able to shoot your Instagram content. And then you could be using, a GoPro to be shooting your TikTok content, for instance. One shoot allows you to be able to capture lots of different content that's suitable for each different platform, but allows them to not have to do 3 separate shoots.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
I got stuck at GoPro for TikTok.
Yeah.
Did you say GoPro for TikTok?
Yeah.
It's just it didn't sync too well with me. Did you just say it like that, or is it a thing? Like people do shoot content for TikTok on GoPro?
Yeah, people. I mean, it's fun, like low fidelity content, right? That sits on TikTok. So obviously, GoPros can be very, very low fidelity, quick edits, that type of thing, day in the life, but without it being highly polished and higher fidelity like you would see on Instagram.
Yeah.
Obviously, people can use iPhones and things like that too to do face-to-camera recording on TikTok too. But it's
raw footage, low fidelity sounds like TikTok.
Yeah, low fidelity is definitely, but I guess low fidelity can look at the quality of the footage or how it's edited or even what someone's capturing. I would also count low fidelity as someone being like, this is my day in the life. I'm getting in my car and like I'm having my coffee. And
get ready with me too. Yeah,
exactly.
My assumption is when someone's using GoPro, they're using it to film maybe sports content or film themselves doing something related to sports, running, maybe swimming, I don't know. Yeah. But it could be anything, I guess,
It could be anything.
It could be a hike. It could be...
Exactly. Running. Lots of that happening and lots of training, that type of thing. All
right. Okay. And so... we spoke about then the importance of creators. Is there like a specific approach, step-by-step guidance that you follow when you're working with brands, when you're introducing creators to their campaigns? Are there certain, insights, or is there a number of information that you need to get started? What is it that you look for usually in a brief so that you can start working with a creator or pick the right creator perhaps?
Right, okay.
Or get the ball rolling.
So I guess it's multiple different questions in one.
Yeah.
One from a more logistical point of view. So we use, as I said, we're a very data-led agency. We utilize technology that no one else in MENA has access to, which enables us to be able to have a look specifically at creators' audiences more so than other people. Now, lots of people are able to see demographic data such as, how many people live in a certain area or what languages they speak. We're able to have a very succinct look into an audience's preferences when it comes to, do they like traveling? Do they like restaurants, food, that type of thing? All the way into the type of brands that they buy, which gives us not only an indicator of the type of people they are, but also the amount of expendable budget that they have, for instance. It's very different having someone buy McDonald's, for instance, over Prada. You can kind of get a better understanding of exactly what the audience looks like. So that allows us to be able to have an understanding into the audience that we're speaking to through each of the creators. When we're having a look at working with specific creators, we always make our recommendation to the client based on what type of verticals we think that we should be looking at in terms of creators. Now, one of my favorite things to do is obviously dependent on the brand and the type of campaign, is to make sure that we're working with multiple different verticals of talent to reach as many different audiences as possible.
I like that. Yeah. Even though the brand is coming from predominantly one vertical, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You'd still recommend other verticals. Right?
Of course. I think that it's dependent on the amount of creators that you're working with on a campaign. Obviously, if you're only able to work with 3 or 4, it makes more sense to sit within one vertical to have better continuity amongst all of the content.
Can you be a little bit more specific? Like, can you give an example? Let's say you're working for a sports brand.
Sure. Yeah. So let's say you're working for a beverage brand that comes from one particular area. So let's say it's a Spanish beverage brand. You can work with who wants to activate in the UAE, for instance, because they're bringing their brand out here. You don't just have to look at working with food and drink influencers. You could also look at working with architecture influencers, for instance, to be able to take them back to where the brand was first forged and what the heritage looks like. You can work obviously with lifestyle creators to be able to show how they would drink the beverage, for instance, and how it fits into their day-to-day life. You could have fashion influencers who are able to match full capsule collections to the colors of the brand as they've changed their logo throughout the years. There's lots of different ways that you're able to work with multiple different verticals of influencers to create really interesting content.
Right.
It doesn't just have to be as simple as this is a food and drink product. Let's just work with food and drink influencers. And I think that adds to... it betters the creative output that you end up getting because, like I said, you have a better variation of content.
Exactly.
And it's amazing when then a brand is repurposing that over their own channels, because then there's so much that they can do with it, and it again interests a wider audience and has access to a wider audience as well.
That's very true. So more creative diversification means... also from an algorithm perspective and how these platforms work, it means it can go find more people that are likely to engage with the content.
Yeah, every influencer marketer's favorite word, algorithm.
Algorithm. Well, I come from I guess a performance marketing background, not an influencer marketing background. So algorithm is even bigger.
Yeah.
For us, I guess.
I mean, it's amazing because the algorithm just changes and it's so delicate.
Let's talk about the algorithm.
Yeah, let's talk about the algorithm.
Which one are we talking about?
God, I mean, listen, their objectives are all very similar.
Yeah.
We can talk about the Instagram algorithm, how now it's not even picking up on hashtags anymore. And that's how advanced it's got, so that it's able to read footage, not even copy in footage, for instance. It's not just like the writing that you put alongside the post, which I think is insane. There's so much video footage now over still footage that, it's grown to be able to understand where people are watching certain parts of videos and what that content of that video looked like in order to be able to show you more.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this earlier today. I can't imagine not understanding how social media works. So for someone who works in finance, for instance, or in property, who has a social media account but doesn't really use it and definitely doesn't understand from the point of view of working with creators or creating content for social media platforms, they must be so confused as to why they watched a frog video once and then all of a sudden all of their content is slowly changing to being about frogs, for instance. Like, it's a ridiculous example, but
it's true.
Yeah.
It
is odd. And but I think that it's also one of the more difficult things to be able to work around when it comes to influencer and creator marketing.
Yeah.
Because you can have amazing content that gets held back because there's not paid spend on it, for instance. And everyone knows that happens because obviously platforms want you to put paid spend behind content in order to be able to make money.
Yeah.
That's one of the trickiest things, because a creator and a brand can spend so much time putting together a campaign and a piece of content that then, because of algorithmic changes or because of how recently a creator posted, or just because it doesn't like the content necessarily, the content can get held back, which is such a shame. And it's definitely something that I've seen before, and it's not specific to the UAE. It's worldwide.
Yeah.
So we always try and ensure that we're putting some form of paid spend behind content in order to be able to optimize it. And that's how I'll build out campaign pricing as well for clients. Like when I was speaking about the platform that we use, which allows us to have better demographic details about audiences of creators, we also have live dashboards that as soon as content goes live, brands are able to see how the content is performing into the very, very minute impressions, etc. So we're able to then kind of take a minute by minute stance on how content is performing in order to put paid spend behind some content and not other
That's
content,
cool.
for instance, to ensure that everything is performing in line with where it should be.
Right. You can track the performance of maybe organic posts and see which one could perform better as a paid post.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, really, what the old rule used to be that you would wait like a week to see how content was performing organically, and then you would kind of optimize based on that. Now I think you have to be a little bit more quick-footed with how you're doing it.
Right.
And it will become very, very evident, especially with platforms like TikTok, for instance, where you can see within the first 24 hours whether something is going to go is going to go big or it's not.
Yeah.
Instagram tends to be a little bit more, something can be a bit quiet for a couple of days and then the reach of it can grow dependent on what other people are searching, for instance.
Right. Or maybe someone famous shared the post.
Yeah.
Instagram do have something called trials.
Yes.
Yeah. Using trials?
Yeah. Trials are very, very interesting concept. For anyone that's not listened, do you want to explain what trials are or do you want me to?
By all means, go for it. Yeah. Okay. I can explain.
So, trials basically are for creators or non-creators, anyone really, to be able to create multiple different versions of reels, so video content, in order to post them all at the same time, not to your audience. So you can post 3 different versions of one video that can be multiple, can show the same thing, but be different lengths, can be lots of different types of videos, and they all get shown to multiple audiences that aren't actually already following you. You can then convert the video to then sit on your grid, or you can choose to never convert it. But it's amazing because it gives you an opportunity to be able to understand exactly what is going to perform well and what isn't going to perform well to a wider demographic. I haven't actually used it on any campaigns as of yet, but like I said, I've been using it myself to trial and error and see how it works. The reach doesn't seem to be amazing, but I've done lots of research and a lot of people say that there can be really good reach as a result. And obviously you can get the benefits from it afterwards as well, where you can gain followers from those trial reels and never have to post them to your actual followers.
Exactly. Not only you can sort of gauge how well is your content going to perform. You can look at the view rate, for example, before you decide which reel to post. So you can actually, an example would be to post, let's say, 3 different reels or the same reel with 3 different hooks or intros, see which one performs better, decide based on the performance of the trial reel which one you would take live. Other creators using it to just gain followers because it only shows to non-followers, and what they're doing is they're posting all the successful reels as trial reels only, just putting more content out there to people who don't follow them.
Yeah, no, I've seen that. And it's amazing because then you see some creators who talk about the fact that they're doing that and they show 2 different reels side by side. And the variation in between the 2 is so minute, but one will be shown 200,000 times more than the other piece of content, which is very funny.
So just to close on the algorithm, today there's an algorithm to get you to a certain destination the organic way. So how well is your organic content going to perform? There's an algorithm for that, right? How many people it's going to reach, how much engagement you're going to get, and this will obviously be based on the creative, the engagement around your creative, the diversity of your creative also. So like you said, if you have more diversified content, you're going to reach more people. But if your content is all frogs, obviously you're going to only reach people who like frogs. I don't know who does that, but who watches frogs videos?
Me, apparently.
Which is cool. It's all good. But I think it can only get you. There's a ceiling for it, right? You will need paid to go even further, right? To reach even a bigger pool of audience, regardless of your content creative. And there's a different algorithm for that. Yes, the better your creative, the better your engagement, the better the metrics are going to be for your paid media. But you can still push at the end of the day to people who don't necessarily watch frog videos or won't necessarily be, or don't have the historical, I guess, consumption that's relevant to the content you're trying to push to them, right? So these are two different algorithms, wouldn't you agree? Or
yeah, no, they definitely are. And one is definitely more paid led. I think that it's amazing because you're able to basically use content to unlock completely new audiences within a sector that you really want to be able to target. So you can have a lifestyle influencer who's talking about a sun cream, for instance, and you want to target people who are interested in travel and tourism because, you know, summer's coming up and they're going to want to use sun cream. So the content can go to the, you know, a lifestyle influencer's immediate audience, but then you can push it to the right audience.
And your sunscreen creative isn't necessarily a footage of a beautiful destination or the footage that a lifestyle audience would consume, right?
No.
But you can still show it to them and it's relevant.
Absolutely.
And so now we've established your sort of approach to start working on a project, right? You want to be able to select multiple creators from different verticals.
Yeah.
You want to understand more about the budget.
But it's also massively down into demographics of who you're speaking to. I mean, it's so important to make sure that you're putting brands in front of the right audiences. Like I said earlier, that's 50% of the reason why people do influencer marketing. There's no point in creating amazing content that, because you don't have paid spend, you then can't activate the right audiences, or you're just not, you know, you want to work with one creator so badly, but you're not going to drive any returns as a result because their audience isn't the right audience to be able to receive that content. But yeah, that's...
And in terms of formats, so are you aware of partnership ads or collab content?
Yeah.
And I feel that this is also a way to sort of break away from the brand to consumer type ads, right? You can get an ad that has the creator's name on it.
Yeah. And it appears on both different grids at the same time, which means that you garner interest from two audiences from one piece of content, which is great. It means the content performs very, very well. And you're accessing two completely different audiences at the same time that all have the same objective of driving to, well, in most cases, driving to purchase a product or a service.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that. But then there are also issues, again, with paid spend, being able to put paid spend behind a collaborator post, etc. But I have preference to work with creators in that way. But creators can be quite funny with doing that as well. They don't necessarily want to collaborate in that way with the brand. And a lot of the time will charge a lot more money when you're working with them in order to do a collaborator post, as opposed to just an individual post.
On their feed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, on their feed.
Yeah.
Because I guess... it's funny because a lot of the campaigns that we build out will break down organic usage in the content. So the content can already be utilized on brand channels for a certain period of time. Yeah. And then we'll also break out paid media spend if there is paid media spend, which then means that the brand can either amplify it via the creators channel or via their own channel. For some reason, creators will charge more money in order to do a collaborator post. And I guess there's just more affinity with the brand and more long term as well.
Yeah. But wouldn't you say it's incentivizing also for the creator that the brand is going to be pushing the content?
It's dependent on the size of the creator, isn't it?
You know what I mean? Oh yeah, it depends on who's bigger.
Yeah, exactly. How well known someone is, and also what industry they're in. You know, I think that it's dependent on how niche the creator is. If you have a beauty creator and they're partnering with a really big beauty brand and they're doing a collaborator post with a really big beauty brand, I feel that other really big beauty brands won't then work with them for a period of time because they're automatically affiliated even more so with that specific brand. Yeah. So it's almost like they're having additional exclusivity put around their content. Again, that's something else that we negotiate with creators to ensure that they're not working with loads of other brands before that are of a similar ilk and afterwards as well, so that there's better brand affinity between the creator and the brand itself. But yeah, that's
it in a nutshell. Do you recommend working with a creator long term, or is it? How do you go about a creator that is working with multiple brands, and this happens a lot.
Yeah, 100.
Without diluting the sort of, I guess the value that the creator can bring to the brand.
Of course. It's something that we always take a holistic look at to understand how much of a competitor the other brands are that the creator is working with. We wouldn't suggest working with someone who is constantly putting out, like even just putting out paid posts over and over and over again, because it doesn't seem so genuine. Generally, you'll find that their community that they've built is much less engaged as a result, because they don't want to feel like they're being sold to all of the time. No one does. So we'll try and work with creators that are a very, very good brand fit for the brand that we're working with. Sometimes if they already have organically posted about a brand, we'll approach them in order to show that there's better affinity. But I love working with brands as ambassadors, and I've worked on some incredible campaigns that have performed very, very well before, of collectives of creators where we've worked with 16 creators over the space of 12 months. And, we've agreed to have 5 or 6 different pieces of content over that space of 12 months for them to create. We give them very loose creative. We gift them with product in between so that they're always posting about the products organically outside of the paid posts. The only thing that you have to take into consideration is audience fatigue, and that's one of the problems. You need to make sure that the creator is able to be smart with the way that they're shooting content and not just reposting the same thing over and over and over again.
Right.
So working with things like calendar hooks can be really good if you're working with a creator long term, because the content is going to be relevant for what's happening at that time of year. I've worked with lots of different creators in that way, and it's also beneficial for the creator as well. Obviously secures long-term work for them, which is amazing. It builds better affinity with audiences too. Another great thing to think about as well, there's other ways that brands can get introduced to working with creators on things like podcasts, to be able to do, in-roll podcast footage.
Like I wanted to ask you about podcast. Are there any points that you wanted to cover?
Yeah, I want to cover ROX, which is something that I've been speaking about quite a lot online.
What's ROX?
So one thing which I have been thinking about a lot recently and trying to understand better within the local territory is this perception that return on investment is really hard to track, and also trying to understand better about other ways that you're able to track like long-term return on investment that aren't necessarily just link clicks, for instance. So I've started having a look at return on experience, shortened to ROX, which sounds so much cooler.
Yeah, it does sound cooler.
It is cooler, that's why. But it's basically, ROX was a measurement that was used and derived from like investments in customer, employee, and leadership experiences. But we're starting to use ROX at Bees and Honey as a way that we can measure a campaign's long-term success. So taking into consideration brand affinity and also latency periods for more considered purchases that may be of a higher price point, for instance. But that I also feel like there's not really very much accountability from a brand's point of view. And that this isn't just UAE, this is worldwide, of brands wanting to put a certain number behind return growth rates or behind ROI as well when they're talking about performance of campaigns or estimated performance of campaigns. And I think that ROX is a really nice way to be able to do that. For me, ROX works really well because it takes into consideration a level of emotion that is prevalent in influencer marketing within the UAE. I feel like audiences here really need to come away from content by feeling something, whether that's aspirational, whether that's, whether they relate to it more than other content. They need to feel something as a result of marketing.
So it looks at the instead of looking at the investment that the brand is putting forward for a campaign or for the past certain period of time, it brings that investment down to what is the experience from the end user, right? That's, I guess, facing this campaign.
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that I kind of put it is that ROI globally drives decisions, but ROX in the UAE drives more desire to purchase. So they're both really important metrics, but there are ways that we can track ROX better than ROI, in terms of having a look at things like not just the quantity, but the quality of sentiment analysis when we're having a look at how people are engaging with posts. So it's not just like fire emojis and like heart eyes, but it's having a look at things like, you know, this is so me, like to show that they really relate with the content, or, you know, I really want to be here, that type of thing. Also, having a look at measuring audience immersion as well is, I think, really important, which is not just having a look at things like view through rates, but also time that people are spending to engage with content outside of just comments and likes. And that's things like polls, that's things like question boxes, anything that's more interactive, quizzes, for instance, or even joining live streams is a really, really good way to have a look at it as well. And repeat viewers is even a really good way to be able to see whether someone's enjoyed content and resonates with it highly, which shows that there's more of a chance that there's going to be a consideration to purchase further down the funnel, which is things like, you know, going back on story tiles and having a look at that really specific metric. Lots of agencies don't make enough use of the metrics that you're able to actually see from social media content, which is a shame because there is such a variation there. You just really have to look into what you want to measure, and link clicks is not just, you know, the only thing that comes as a result of an influencer marketing campaign.
Right.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Have you tried applying this model?
Yeah, 100%. And it's something which I really wanted to try and find a metric. Initially, I was having a look at trying to work out if there was a metric that we could use to be able to understand sentiment analysis better, and trying to have a look at the quality of a community in terms of how many times someone was commenting on one post or on multiple posts across a series, how many times the creator was commenting back. And you're definitely able to see better input from looking at ROX. ROI kind of measures this output, sales, leads, conversions.
Yeah, it completely disregards the
experience.
Exactly.
100%. ROX kind of measures this emotional trigger, more cultural resonance, which is so important in the UAE as well, and is something that a lot of creators really need to be thinking about. You know, it's not just what they're creating, it's how they engage with their audience culturally, showing that they understand the territory that they're in and relating their content back to that.
It's very important in Saudi Arabia also.
Oh, 100%.
By the way, cultural resonance, it's huge over there.
100%. We work across Saudi and the UAE. I mean, UAE and Saudi are predominantly our two biggest areas of interest, but we also work on a global scale as well. UAE social media is slightly more prevalent in terms of being able to track rocks as a result. And I feel like there's more brand loyalty, interestingly, in KSA over the UAE. But
really, yeah, I think because there are just many more creators in the UAE.
Yeah.
And more brands willing to work with creators.
Cool.
Tatum.
Thank you.
I feel like this wasn't long enough.
No, I know. I've got so much more to talk about.